The Great Gatsby explained, "The dream, the lie, the crash, and the death, nobody escapes. The party, the affair, the accident, and the empty funeral. Some books are remembered because they tell a beautiful story. The Great Gatsby survives because it tells a beautiful lie, and then makes you watch that lie collapse. At first glance, it looks like a story about glamour, champagne, mansions, jazz, fast cars, rich people, secret affairs, and one mysterious man throwing impossible parties beside the water. But underneath the glitter is something colder. This is a book about a man who mistakes desire for destiny, a woman who mistakes comfort for safety, and a society that lets the dreamer die while the powerful walk away clean." Book covered. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, first published in 1925 by Charles Scribner's Sons. The novel is set in Jazz-age New York and follows Nick Carraway's encounter with Jay Gatsby, a self-made millionaire obsessed with reuniting with Daisy Buchanan, the wealthy woman he loved before the war. The big idea of the book. The central idea is brutally simple. A person can rebuild his name, his house, his fortune, and his image, but he cannot force the past to become innocent again. Gatsby believes that if he becomes rich enough, dazzling enough, and persistent enough, Daisy will return to him exactly as she was before. He does not merely want love. He wants time reversed, class erased, and memory rewritten. That is why the story is tragic. Gatsby's dream is not small. It is impossible. The plot in one flow. The novel is narrated by Nick Carraway, a young man from the Midwest who moves east in 1922 to learn the bond business. Nick presents himself as observant, tolerant, and slow to judge, but the story he tells is shaped by disgust, fascination, and disappointment. He arrives in New York believing he is entering the center of modern life. By the end, he sees it as a place of carelessness, performance, and moral decay. Nick rents a modest house in West Egg, Long Island. West Egg is wealthy, but it is not socially secure. It is where new money lives. People who have made fortunes quickly, but lack inherited status. Across the bay is East Egg. Richer, older, more polished, and more protected. East Egg is where Tom and Daisy Buchanan live. Daisy is Nick's cousin. Tom, her husband, is a former college athlete from an immensely wealthy family. He is physically imposing, arrogant, racist, entitled, and restless. His money is old enough that he never has to explain it. His body and class position have taught him that the world exists for his use. Nick visits Tom and Daisy early in the novel. Their house is vast, elegant, and airy, but the emotional atmosphere is strained. Daisy appears charming, bright, and fragile, but there is something evasive in her manner. She performs lightness because seriousness would expose too much. Tom dominates the room with opinions and physical force. Also present is Jordan Baker, a professional golfer and friend of Daisy's. Jordan is cool, cynical, attractive, and emotionally detached. She gives Nick a first glimpse into the hidden rot beneath the Buchanan's marriage. Tom has a mistress in New York. That revelation changes the tone immediately. The Buchanan world is not stable beauty. It is wealth with corruption built into it. Soon after, Tom takes Nick to meet his mistress, Myrtle Wilson. She lives in the Valley of Ashes, a bleak industrial wasteland between Long Island and New York City. This valley is one of the novel's most important settings. It is where the waste of rich people's lives seems to settle physically. Dust, smoke, labor, poverty, and exhaustion. Myrtle is married to George Wilson, a poor garage owner. George is tired, trusting, and beaten down by life. Myrtle despises him because he represents everything she wants to escape: poverty, dullness, weakness, and social invisibility. Tom represents the opposite. He is rich, masculine, cruel, and connected to a world she wants to enter. Tom's affair with Myrtle is not romantic. It is an exercise in possession. He uses her for excitement and domination. Myrtle uses him as a fantasy of upward movement. Both are lying to themselves. But Tom has the money to survive the lie. Tom, Nick, Myrtle, and others gather in a New York apartment. Tom keeps for the affair. The party becomes drunken, vulgar, and tense. Myrtle grows louder and more confident, trying on the personality of a woman with status. She speaks as if she is above her own life. She talks about George with contempt. Then she makes the mistake of saying Daisy's name repeatedly. Tom responds by breaking Myrtle's nose. The moment is shocking because it reveals the real rules of this world. Tom may betray Daisy, humiliate George, and use Myrtle, but Myrtle is not allowed to imagine herself as equal to Daisy. The class boundary is violently enforced. Tom's desire is permitted. Myrtle's fantasy is punished. Meanwhile, Nick becomes increasingly aware of his mysterious neighbor, Jay Gatsby. Gatsby's mansion sits beside Nick's small house in West Egg. Every weekend, Gatsby throws enormous parties. Guests flood in from New York and Long Island. They drink, dance, gossip, flirt, and speculate about their host. Most have not been invited. Many barely know Gatsby. They consume his hospitality while inventing stories about him. Some say Gatsby killed a man. Some say he was a German spy. Some say he is an Oxford man. The rumors matter because Gatsby's identity is unclear. He is famous, but not known, visible, but hidden. Nick eventually receives an invitation to one of the parties. He goes and finds a world of extravagant noise. The mansion is full of music, lights, alcohol, laughter, and theatrical excess. Yet Gatsby himself is strangely absent from the center of it. The party exists because of him, but not quite for him. When Nick finally meets Gatsby, he is surprised. Gatsby is not loud or vulgar. He is controlled, courteous, and almost formal. He has an extraordinary smile that seems to concentrate itself entirely on the person in front of him. Gatsby makes people feel chosen. That smile is part charm, part performance, part desperate hope. Gatsby becomes interested in Nick, and slowly the reason emerges. Gatsby is not throwing parties merely because he enjoys luxury. He is throwing them because he hopes Daisy will one day wander in. This is the secret engine of the entire novel. Years earlier, Gatsby and Daisy fell in love in Louisville. Gatsby was then a young military officer without money or status. Daisy was wealthy, admired, and protected by her class. Gatsby understood that he was not truly her equal, but he concealed the scale of that gap. He let Daisy believe he belonged more comfortably in her world than he did. Then Gatsby went to war. Daisy waited for a time, but not forever. Tom Buchanan entered her life with immense wealth and social certainty. He gave her pearls, security, and a future that made sense to her family and class. Daisy married Tom. Gatsby never accepted this as final. To him, Daisy did not simply choose another man. She was lost, temporarily, displaced by circumstance, waiting for Gatsby to become the man who could reclaim her. Everything Gatsby has built since then is aimed at that recovery. The mansion, the parties, the clothes, the car, the rumors, the performance of grandeur, all of it is arranged like a stage set facing Daisy's house across the bay. At night, Gatsby reaches emotionally toward the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. The light becomes the symbol of everything he wants: Daisy, wealth, status, the past, America, arrival, completion. Gatsby's dream depends on Nick, because Nick is Daisy's cousin and neighbor. Through Jordan Baker, Gatsby asks Nick to arrange a meeting. He does not approach Daisy directly. For all his wealth, he is still emotionally terrified. The entire mansion exists to attract her, but the actual meeting requires Nick's small cottage. Nick agrees. Daisy comes to tea without knowing Gatsby will be there. Gatsby arrives in a state of almost comic nervousness. For a man who has constructed himself as a figure of mystery and power, he is suddenly awkward, frightened, and exposed. He knocks over a clock, a symbolic moment that captures the absurdity of his project. He is trying to handle time itself, and time will not obey him. At first, the reunion is painfully tense. Daisy is overwhelmed. Gatsby is embarrassed. Nick leaves them alone, and when he returns, the emotional atmosphere has changed. Gatsby is glowing. Daisy has softened. The past appears for a moment to have reopened. Gatsby then takes Daisy and Nick to his mansion. He shows Daisy his rooms, his possessions, his imported shirts, his signs of success. Daisy cries over the shirts, but the emotion is not really about fabric. It is about the scale of Gatsby's transformation and the life that might have been. Gatsby reads her reaction as proof that his dream is coming true, but something more complicated is happening. Daisy is moved by Gatsby's devotion and dazzled by his wealth, but she is also weak, divided, and fundamentally attached to comfort. Gatsby sees her as the sacred center of his dream. Daisy is a real person, and worse, a compromised one. Their affair begins again. Gatsby stops throwing parties because they have served their purpose. The crowds no longer matter. Only Daisy matters. But the disappearance of the parties also exposes how narrow Gatsby's life actually is. His entire social world was a trap laid for one woman. Nick gradually learns more about Gatsby's real past. Gatsby was born James Gatz in North Dakota to poor farmers. He reinvented himself as Jay Gatsby as a young man. This change of name was not cosmetic. It was an act of self-creation. James Gatz refused the life he had been born into. Jay Gatsby was the man he imagined he deserved to become. A major influence was Dan Cody, a wealthy man whom young Gatsby served as assistant and companion. Cody represented money, mobility, and the glamour of escape. Gatsby learned from him how wealth looked and how rich men moved through the world. Although Gatsby did not inherit Cody's fortune, the encounter shaped his imagination. Gatsby became committed to the idea that identity could be manufactured through discipline, desire, and performance. This is one of the novel's deepest tensions. Gatsby is fraudulent in some ways, but not lazy. He has immense willpower. He has built himself with almost religious intensity. His tragedy is not that he dreams too little. It is that he pours that discipline into an illusion. Tom grows suspicious of Gatsby and Daisy. He notices their intimacy and begins investigating Gatsby's background. Tom dislikes Gatsby not because Tom is morally superior, but because Gatsby threatens his possession of Daisy and violates the class order. Gatsby is rich, but his money is new and suspect. To Tom, Gatsby is not a rival gentleman. He is an intruder. The conflict comes to a head in New York, at the Plaza Hotel, on a suffocatingly hot day. Nick, Jordan, Gatsby, Daisy and Tom gather together, and the emotional pressure becomes unbearable. Gatsby wants Daisy to declare that she never loved Tom. This is crucial. Gatsby does not merely want Daisy to leave Tom now. He wants her to erase the marriage emotionally. He needs the past purified. Daisy cannot do it. She says she loves Gatsby now, but when pushed, she cannot honestly say she never loved Tom. This destroys the clean version of the dream Gatsby has protected for years. Gatsby needs Daisy to be the same woman from Louisville, untouched by time, marriage, compromise, and weakness. But she is not. Tom then attacks Gatsby's legitimacy. He exposes Gatsby's involvement with Meyer Wolfsheim and criminal business, including bootlegging and other shady financial schemes. Gatsby's fortune, which was supposed to make him acceptable, becomes evidence against him. Tom reasserts his dominance, not by being faithful, kind, or good, but by proving that Gatsby is socially dirty. Daisy retreats emotionally. Gatsby senses he is losing her, but he refuses to accept it. Tom, now confident, lets Daisy drive back with Gatsby. It is a cruel gesture of dominance. He believes Gatsby has already lost. On the road back, the novel's fatal accident occurs. Myrtle Wilson, who has been locked upstairs by George after he realized she was having an affair, sees Gatsby's yellow car approaching. She believes Tom is in it because Tom had driven the car earlier. In desperation, she runs toward it, likely thinking she can escape with him, or confront him. The car hits Myrtle and kills her. Daisy is driving, but Gatsby takes responsibility. This is the decisive proof of his devotion and his blindness. Even after the plaza confrontation, even after Daisy fails to choose him cleanly, Gatsby protects her. He waits outside the Buchanan house that night, worried Tom might hurt her. Nick checks and discovers the truth. Daisy and Tom are inside together, sitting over food, quietly joined by their shared crisis. This image is devastating. Gatsby stands outside, guarding Daisy from a danger that no longer exists, while Daisy and Tom are already retreating into the fortress of their marriage and class. They are careless people. They break things, damage lives, and then hide behind money. George Wilson is destroyed by Myrtle's death. He believes the driver of the yellow car must have been Myrtle's lover. Tom, protecting himself and redirecting danger, tells George that Gatsby owned the car. George goes to Gatsby's mansion. Gatsby, still hoping Daisy will call, waits. He believes the story is not over. He still imagines that Daisy may choose him. His entire life remains suspended on that possibility. George finds Gatsby in his swimming pool and shoots him dead. Then George kills himself. The dream ends not with Daisy's return, but with Gatsby murdered because he protected her. Daisy does not come. Tom and Daisy leave town. They do not face the funeral, the investigation, or the wreckage. Their money absorbs the impact. Nick tries to arrange Gatsby's funeral and discovers the emptiness beneath Gatsby's glamorous life. The party guests vanish. The people who drank his liquor, filled his rooms, and fed off his legend do not appear. Maya Wolfsheim refuses involvement. Daisy sends nothing. Tom disappears. Gatsby's father, Henry Gatz, arrives, proud and grieving, carrying evidence of his son's youthful ambition. The funeral is small and rain-soaked. Almost nobody comes. This is the final exposure. Gatsby's mansion was full, but his life was lonely. His fame was noisy, but his death is quiet. The people who enjoyed the spectacle had no loyalty to the man. Nick becomes disgusted with the East. He breaks things off with Jordan. He sees Tom one final time and realizes Tom feels justified. Tom believes Gatsby deserved what happened. He has no real moral reckoning. That is part of the horror. The powerful do not need to understand the damage they cause. Nick returns to the Midwest, rejecting the East as spiritually empty. In the final movement, he reflects on Gatsby's dream and the larger American dream. Gatsby believed in the future with extraordinary intensity, but his future was chained to an unrecoverable past. The green light looked like hope, but it was also distance. The novel ends with one of literature's great tragic ideas. Human beings keep pushing forward, while being pulled backward by memory, desire, and illusion. Gatsby's dream is both magnificent and fatal. He is greater than the people around him because he can believe in something. He is doomed because what he believes in is false. The main characters inside the plot. Nick Carraway begins as an observer and ends as a witness for the prosecution. He is not the hero in the active sense, but he is the moral recorder. Through him, the reader sees the glamour first, then the sickness underneath it. Jay Gatsby is the central tragic figure. He wants Daisy, but Daisy is also a symbol for everything else he wants. Class arrival, emotional completion, and victory over his origins. His flaw is not ambition alone. His flaw is believing that enough ambition can turn fantasy into truth. Daisy Buchanan wants feeling without consequence. She wants to be adored, protected, desired, and comfortable. She is not emotionless, but she is weak in the exact way that matters. When love requires risk, she chooses safety. Tom Buchanan wants possession. He wants Daisy, Myrtle, status, control, and moral freedom for himself, while denying it to everyone else. He is brutal, because the world has rarely punished him. Myrtle Wilson wants escape. She mistakes Tom for a doorway into a better life. But he is only a different form of imprisonment. Her death is caused by the collision between fantasy, class, and carelessness. George Wilson wants stability, love, and truth, but he is too exhausted and powerless to understand the forces destroying him. By the end, grief and manipulation turn him into the weapon that kills Gatsby. Jordan Baker represents a cooler, more modern form of carelessness. She is not as destructive as Tom or Daisy, but she belongs to the same moral climate. She avoids emotional accountability and drifts away from seriousness. The central conflict inside the plot. The central conflict is Gatsby's attempt to force Daisy, society, and time itself to validate the identity he has built. Externally, he faces Tom, class prejudice, suspicion about his money, and Daisy's marriage. Internally, he faces a deeper enemy, his refusal to accept that Daisy has changed, that the past is gone, and that his dream was built on an edited version of reality. That is why the plaza confrontation matters so much. Gatsby does not only lose an argument there, he loses the fantasy that Daisy's love can be pure enough to erase everything that happened after he left for war. The turning points inside the plot. The first major turning point is Nick's discovery that Gatsby's parties are not random displays of wealth. They are signals sent across the bay to Daisy. This turns Gatsby from a mysterious millionaire into a man organized around longing. The second turning point is Gatsby and Daisy's reunion. For a short time, the dream seems possible. Gatsby's mansion finally has its intended audience, and Daisy appears emotionally moved by what he has become. The third turning point is the Plaza Hotel confrontation. Gatsby demands an impossible emotional confession from Daisy, and Tom exposes Gatsby's criminal connections. Daisy's retreat marks the collapse of Gatsby's control over the story. The fourth turning point is Myrtle's death. Daisy kills Myrtle while driving Gatsby's car, and Gatsby chooses to protect Daisy. The dream becomes lethal. The final turning point is Gatsby's murder. George Wilson kills the wrong man for the wrong reason, but the death still reveals the truth. Gatsby has been sacrificed for people who will not even attend his funeral. The emotional journey inside the plot. The emotional movement of the novel is from fascination to revulsion. At first, Nick is drawn to the East because it feels alive. It offers speed, wealth, beauty, reinvention, and adult freedom. Gatsby's parties seem like the peak of that world. Then, the glamour begins to curdle. Tom's violence, Daisy's evasiveness, Myrtle's desperation, Gatsby's obsession, and the Valley of Ashes all reveal a society built on appetite and denial. By the end, Gatsby is the only figure Nick can admire, not because Gatsby is innocent, but because his longing has a grandeur the others lack. Gatsby is morally compromised, but emotionally committed. The Buchanans are cleaner on paper and emptier in reality. The ending explained. The ending means Gatsby dies for a dream that Daisy will not honor. He protects Daisy after Myrtle's death because he still believes in her as the center of his future. But Daisy has already chosen self-preservation. She retreats into Tom's protection, lets Gatsby absorb the danger, and disappears. Gatsby loses because his dream depends on someone weaker than the dream itself. He has built a life around Daisy, but Daisy is not strong enough, honest enough, or free enough to carry the meaning he gives her. The tragedy is that Gatsby is both foolish and magnificent. He is wrong about Daisy, but his capacity to hope is still extraordinary. That is why Nick separates him from the others. Gatsby's dream destroys him, but the people who survive are worse. The story anchor. The strongest story anchor is Gatsby standing outside the Buchanan house after Myrtle's death. He believes he is protecting Daisy. He thinks Tom may threaten her. He waits in the dark, loyal to the fantasy even after the fantasy has visibly failed. Inside, Daisy and Tom sit together, already repairing their alliance. That image explains the whole novel. Gatsby is outside, exposed and devoted. Daisy and Tom are inside, protected and careless. If you only remember 3 ideas. First, Wanting something intensely does not make it true. Gatsby's dream feels powerful because he gives everything to it, but emotional intensity cannot rewrite reality. Second, class protects the careless. Tom and Daisy survive because their wealth gives them distance from consequence. Gatsby has money, but not the kind of inherited protection they possess. Third, reinvention has limits. Gatsby successfully invents Jay Gatsby, but he cannot invent Daisy's courage, erase her marriage, or make the past return clean. The sentence that explains the entire book. The Great Gatsby is the story of a man who builds a golden life to recover a lost moment, only to discover that the people inside the dream are too careless to deserve it. Why this book still matters. The novel still matters because modern life is full of Gatsby logic. People still believe the right house, body, title, brand, partner, bank balance, or public image will finally make them complete. It also explains the cruelty of status. Gatsby can become rich, but he cannot become old money. Myrtle can chase Tom, but she cannot enter Daisy's world. The dream promises openness, but the gatekeepers still exist. The book's reputation also grew after a slow start. Britannica notes that the novel was not a commercial success at first and later gained popularity, including through World War II to era circulation and its place in American education. Where the book is weakest. The novel's weakness is also part of its design. Several characters are seen through Nick's limited, judgmental lens. Daisy, Jordan, and Myrtle are vivid, but the narration often traps them inside Nick's moral interpretation. Some modern readers may also find the symbolism heavily taught and over-familiar. The green light, the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, the Valley of Ashes, and the parties have been explained so often that they can feel like exam objects rather than living images. But the story itself still cuts through that classroom dust. The emotional machinery remains brutal. What most people misunderstand about this book. The shallow reading is that Gatsby is a romantic hero who loved Daisy completely. The deeper reading is harsher. Gatsby loves Daisy, but he also uses her as proof that his invented self is real. He does not merely want her as a person. He wants her as confirmation that he has defeated poverty, time, and rejection. That does not make him fake. It makes him tragic. What the internet gets wrong about this book. The internet often turns Gatsby into an aesthetic. Suits, champagne, parties, luxury, confidence, old money mood boards, and main character reinvention. That misses the point almost completely. Gatsby's glamour is not the reward. It is the camouflage. The mansion is not proof that he has won. It is proof that he is still begging the past to look back at him. The real lesson is not become Gatsby. It is do not build your life around someone who would leave you outside while they hide indoors. The tailor-tailored interpretation. The tailor-tailored reading is this. The Great Gatsby is about the danger of outsourcing your identity to a person, a class, or a fantasy of a rival. Gatsby is disciplined, ambitious, charismatic, and visionary. In another story, those traits would make him unstoppable. Here they make him vulnerable, because he points all that power at the wrong target. He does not fail because he lacks drive. He fails because his drive is attached to a lie, the real-life test. The real-life test is simple. Ask whether you are chasing the thing itself or what the thing would prove about you. A person may not want the promotion. They may want proof they were not underestimated. They may not want the ex back. They may want the rejection reversed. They may not want the mansion. They may want the class wound healed. Gatsby teaches that the wrong emotional target can turn strength into self-destruction. How to apply the lessons without turning them into a fantasy. Do not romanticize unavailable people. Do not confuse status symbols with inner repair. Do not assume that becoming impressive will make careless people loyal. Do not build a life designed to make one person regret losing you. Measure behavior instead. Daisy's behavior tells the truth before Gatsby accepts it. Tom's behavior tells the truth from the beginning. Gatsby's mistake is not lack of intelligence. It is refusing to update the dream when reality contradicts it. Who should read this book? Read it if you are interested in ambition, class, reinvention, status, romantic obsession, or the darker side of the American dream. It is especially useful for anyone who has ever believed that success would heal an old humiliation. It is also valuable for leaders, creators, and ambitious people because it shows how vision can become dangerous when it is emotionally misdirected. Who should ignore this book? Ignore it if you need a plot-heavy thriller with constant external action. The book is short, but its power is psychological, symbolic, and atmospheric. Some readers may also struggle if they expect every major character to be likable. This is not a story full of good people. It is a story full of exposed motives. 5 questions to test whether you actually understood this book. Does Gatsby truly love Daisy, or does he love what Daisy represents? Why does Daisy retreat to Tom even after reconnecting with Gatsby? What does Tom understand about power that Gatsby does not? Why is Myrtle's death not just an accident, but the result of the whole social structure? Why does Nick admire Gatsby while condemning nearly everyone else? The final lesson. The deepest warning of The Great Gatsby is not that dreams are bad. It is that dreams become dangerous when they depend on people who are too weak, selfish, or protected to honor them. Gatsby dies because he believes in a beautiful version of Daisy that reality cannot support. Tom and Daisy survive because they believe in nothing except themselves. That is the brutal final contrast. The dreamer is destroyed, the careless endure, and Nick is left to tell the story so the reader can see the wreckage clearly.